So our last session is going to be on ethical fashion, and we have our speaker for the day today, Ms. Charvi Mishra. So Charvi is a member of the Union of Concerned Researchers in Fashion and an officer at UN Sustainable Development Solutions Youth. She has worked in the fashion industry for the past 3 years with Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited as an operations manager and is currently pursuing her MBA in Sustainability Management from TERI. Hi Charvi, welcome.
Thank you so much, Divija, for that introduction. So we've talked about roti and makan. Now we'll be talking about kapde. So let's start this session. Just give me a moment. I'm projecting my screen. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm pretty sure everyone is a bit tired by now. So I'll try to keep it short and simple. I want to start with a quote by Mahatma Gandhi that there is no beauty in the finest cloth if it makes hunger and unhappiness. I think little did he know that it's actually causing deaths at this time. I know I'm starting a bit, not in a good manner, but that's the reality of the situation. So that's how the whole concept of ethical fashion comes up. We'll be talking about the what, whys, and hows. So before starting, what is it? I think it's important to talk about the history of its global presence, of how it all came into the global stage. So as you can see in the picture, it's a factory. There's a lot of, it's demolished. And it was a really bad state. Basically, it happened in Bangladesh in 2013. It's called the Rana Plaza disaster. There were 1,130 garment workers who were killed. I won't say died, I would say killed, because there was negligence by the factory managers there. And it was not because they didn't know better, it was because they didn't care. And the worst part of it all was that the clothes that were made there were of brands like Walmart and Primark, huge brands, global presence. And they didn't know that this was the factory where their clothes were being made. So this is the current reality of the fashion industry. And unfortunately, not much has changed. Now we are moving to 2022 and not really anything has changed. So now we talk about what is ethical fashion. So ethical fashion is human-centered fashion. It basically assesses how every process in the supply chain of the garment industry impacts garment workers. And I think an important point is that we cannot achieve ethical fashion without sustainable fashion. Now, those of you who don't know, sustainability talks about both the people and planet. Ethical fashion mostly talks about the people part of it. And I'm saying this because if our environment is not good, suppose the dyes used in the fashion industry amount to 20% of pollution. And these dyes emit a lot of fumes. So if the fumes are inhaled by the people, it's not ethical for them, right? So in that way, I could say that both of them go hand in hand. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the supply chain, and I'll tell you later why. Now we also, so as you know, we talked about the mobility sector and the agriculture sector. And the fashion industry is in the top 3 of the most polluting industries in the world. And also it employs 40 million people in India alone. So you can imagine the big amount of impact it creates all over the world and in India in particular. So it goes from fiber producers, where the whole agriculture sector comes in. Then it goes to yarn producers, fabric producers, garment producers, brands and retails. And how does all this happen? Through the mobility sector, through the transportation. And this might look very linear and very simple, but believe me, it is not. It is a huge spider web, because when I'm talking about garment producers here, if you take any of your clothes, take your jeans for example. If you look at it right now, you'll see a button on it, you'll see a zip on it, you might see a pocket lining on it, you'll see a lot of threads in it. So just imagine that the zipper is coming from Germany, the buttons are coming from Bangladesh, the pocket lining is coming from China, and all these things are coming to one garment producer who's producing it, sending it to a warehouse, where again the warehouse transports it to various places in the country, and then it goes to the consumer. So you can just imagine the miles that one cloth makes to reach you. And then also its journey isn't complete. Its journey completes, unfortunately, in the landfills these days. So why am I telling you all this is because just imagine if a brand is given a responsibility to take care of their garment workers. How will they take care of all these till the tier 4? Because as you probably saw in the Rana Plaza thing earlier, they weren't even aware that their clothes were being produced in that particular factory. They weren't even transparent about their own supply chains right here. Then how can we expect them to go till here? So, that is the biggest challenge that I feel there is in the ethical supply chain. And it's not only for the fabric, it's for the button, it's for the tags, it's for the lining, it's for everything. So that is the challenge that we'll be tackling today, I guess, all of us here. So yeah, let's move forward. So I'll be talking about the garment workers more. So there are many problems, as you can see. There's bonded labor, there's unfair wages, there are sweatshops, which the garment industry is notoriously infamous for. Then there is gender equality and child labor. To go a little bit more into detail, I'm not sure if any of you have read about this, but there's something called the Sumangali scheme in Chennai. Basically, what they do is that they ask parents of 13 to 15-year-old girls to send them to these dorms. And what they do is that they pay their parents a very menial amount for their dowries. And what they'll ask in return is that the girls will be staying in the dorms from morning till night. They basically don't leave their dorms ever, and they have to work, and they'll be provided food. And so you can just imagine the kind of conditions they're working in. Then there are unfair wages because of the gender equality factor too, because the garment industry is pretty much 85% of female workers. And because of their gender, they are paid even lesser than the usually less wages. Because if you're getting your jeans in 2,000 rupees, when I told you about the supply chain earlier, you can imagine how much the garment worker must be getting out of it. Then talking about child labor. So child labor is another ball game altogether, but according to ILO, 140 million children are employed, and most of them are in the textile industry. And they're even preferred because of their small hands, because they can easily pick out cotton and not damage the cotton balls. And they can stick those sparkly things easily in garments. And it's even more prominent in the garment luxury sector, surprisingly. Talking about the COVID impact, it was bad for us, but if you can even imagine how these garment workers must have lived at that time. As soon as the lockdown was over for the factories, there were no safety precautions with 100% attendance. I saw that myself from my own eyes. There was no precaution. There was no masks, no nothing. It was going on as if nothing ever happened. And obviously that led to more lockdowns. Then there were big brands like H&M, Nike, Primark, who canceled their orders during COVID because they weren't able to sell. So they canceled their orders in the Asian countries, which caused unemployment in the garment workers. Now the barriers for ethical fashion. So I think the first one, I think I've put this a bit wrong, but I think the first one is that consumers want more. You might think that there has been more awareness after COVID, but unfortunately that is not the case. I'm sure everyone knows about Shein, the cheapest clothes. They produce the cheapest clothes, I think, ever. And they upped their sales by 10 billion during COVID. So I think this is still a huge problem, and there is no awareness of what goes on in the garment industry. Then in India particularly, there are no policies to protect workers and enforce responsibility on brands to be more ethical and be more responsible about their supply chains. Then the third is that brands are greenwashing consumers And of course, there are no policies. When there are no policies for this, you can't really expect anything going on here. And unfortunately, consumers do not know how to differentiate between an actually sustainable product and a greenwashed product. So I think these are the main challenges for ethical fashion. Now let's talk about a solution. It's one word, but it carries a lot of weight, which is called transparency. It basically says that a brand has to have public disclosure of all the information of their supply chain, their business practices, and the impact these practices have on the environment and the people. Basically, proper sustainability reporting is needed, ESG reporting is needed. Unfortunately, there are not many standards except GRI for the fashion industry, but I hope things change soon. Then, what is the most, what can we do as youth? And as you know, one of the biggest challenges was consumers want more. So I think we have a lot of power as youth because we are the largest. We have the largest numbers right now in India. So I think we can do a lot. So talking about global movements for ethical fashion, these were made by my colleagues in UCRF. So the first is labor behind the label. This is a new movement. It started in 2020 itself. Basically, it demands brands to know where the cloth is made and who is making their clothes. A similar global movement is Who Made My Clothes by Fashion Revolution. And I implore you guys to do your bit and be a part of these movements. It's very simple. It's 5 minutes exercises, but it makes a lot of impact. Then marks to look for. So as consumers, what can we do? We can look for marks, at least for now, to start off. So the first is a fair trade certified mark. It basically talks about that there is no bonded labor and the people were given wages fairly and not just minimum wages. Then the handloom products, because I think the Make in India has done something good and it has produced a lot of employment, and handlooms usually doesn't have these kind of issues. So it's a good thing overall. And then many organic, I've just talked about one here, but there are many organic certifications which we can look for as consumers. Then as youth, I think we can demand. We are aware, so we can demand two things. We can demand our governments for policies to protect workers and farmers, and we can demand from brands that we are buying from to become more responsible of their own supply chains. Then the small steps that one can take is it sounds very simple, but I think it's a little bit of a it starts small, but it has huge impacts. So the first is, of course, buy less. I think the most sustainable clothes are the ones which you already have. So buy less, and if you need to buy, try to buy secondhand or probably repair the clothes you already have. Try swapping clothes. There are a lot of thrift shops now, even in India. So you can try doing that. Choose quality over quantity. Try to maintain your clothes for the longest time. Take care of it. And have a loving relationship with your clothes instead of one where you're just running towards trends. Because fashion is an aspirational industry. It wants you to think as if you're not enough, but that is not really the case. And I think we as youth should be conscious enough of what the brand is telling us and how they are treating you as a consumer. So my last request is, since everyone now here is aware of the problem, to be and is conscious about it, to be conscious and to be conscientious, to actually work on these small steps. And I hope everyone here will do that. So yeah, thank you very much.